Mr. Schiller.
This is a real joy. I just
Oh
want to
my
soak
gosh.
in this moment for a moment. So good. It
Yeah,
was funny. Megan last night laughed when I posted about your website and your work, and I referred to us having a bromance. But I was like, that's what it is.
it's totally true. We're letting go into the love.
That's right. That's right. Hmm.
You know what I think we should do first?
Hmm.
We should pray.
I was hoping you would say that.
Wondering if you wanna. I want to pray with my rattle,
Hmm.
and wondering if you'd like to pray first.
Sure. Hmm. I'd just like to give thanks for my whole life and all the things that touch upon my life, including you and all the good people that I get to spend time with in these strange and unusual days. I just want to give thanks for the opportunity to be with you right now in this way and to share what we want to share and talk about the things we want to talk about and to do that in a good way. And I just ask for help to do that, to stay in my body and in my heart and to just share what there is to be shared and to stay in my business. And I ask for more help to continue to come out into the world and to have these discussions and to feel safe in doing so and to experience ease and love in these communications and in these sharings. Oh, that is my prayer this morning.
Amen. Amen. I'm gonna call in some support for us so that we share and speak into what is most helpful in this moment. Adonai Sivatai Tiftach Ufi Avi Tehilatecha. Ancestors, I greet you on this beautiful day. Call out to all of my ancestors, and I call out to Aaron Schiller's ancestors to gather around us in a container of love, a container of potency, a container of remedy. Hold us open so that we may channel in the voice of divinity, that we may allow healing words to be spoken through us, that these words may be delivered so perfectly, so attuned to the listeners of this interview that we get to share our purpose, we get to share our prayers for our lives and for the remedy that we want to be a part of in this world that is in such need of guidance and support and strength. I call out to the water spirits. I call out to beautiful Mami Wata, Mayim Chaim, Mini Wichoni. I ask you, sacred water, to bubble up into Aaron and me, that we may bring your healing message to the people a little bit more today than there was yesterday. And I call out to the mineral kingdom. I call out to the rock nation and the mountain spirits to weave your beautiful seeing, that incredible, unimaginably beautiful story for our lives and for the lives of the listeners. Please weave your medicine into every word that we speak here today. And I call out to the spirit of Mother Gaia, Pachamama, Tingam Tambalo, Sacred Mother, Father, Earth, call out to you. I greet you on this beautiful day. Thank you for our lives. Thank you for gifting us the opportunity to walk upon your belly, to walk through your body, to walk as your body. Guide us in this interview, guide us in this time to share of the medicine that you have blessed us so deeply with in our lives. I call out to the Wedeme. Wedeme, 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 I call out to you, little ones, the little people, my sacred partners, my compatriots. I ask that you enliven the words that we speak here with magic, that you bring the transmission, the healing that you want to see live through us on this day. And I call out to the Wea, I call out to the wild, the nature spirits, the ancient, fractaling, beautiful, spontaneous, illuminating spirits of nature. We are in such deep devotion to you, relatives, and we ask that you speak through us, that you weave Aaron and my heart together in such a beautiful and healing way that we get to share the medicine that you have blessed us to carry in this world. Thank you, relatives, so much for coming as I have called you. Please help us relax into our beautiful bodies and speak from our hearts. Great Spirit, open the way. Open the way for your medicine to be delivered just as you see fit.
Mm-hmm. Bless your life, brother. Thank you for that.
Yeah, bro.
Mm. So while you settle in, I think the place I would love to start is really where we started, right? The reason that we have been able to forge such a great brotherhood, I think, is our both of our love of prayer. And so I think it makes sense for us to just start there with, what is prayer? How is it helpful to you in your life, the people you work with?
Wow.
Who owns prayer? I got a bunch of questions just around prayer so that we can kind of expand the community field about what it is and what maybe it isn't too.
Yeah. I actually would love to hear you riff a little bit about that.
All right. I
Yeah.
mean, for me, the prayer is, you know, my soul's ability to connect directly into the source of all life,
Yeah.
that I may call God or I may call the Great Spirit. But it is that direct connection that doesn't require me to go to an intermediary. Like I don't need somebody to ask them to pray. I love if people pray for me, but
Yeah.
I don't need to go to necessarily like a rabbi or a priest and say, hey, can you pray and talk to God for me? I have that direct access. That's what
Yes.
prayer is to me, that it
Yeah.
allows me to connect into that great flow of existence.
Yeah.
And it's proved to be, it's prayer has saved my life,
Yeah.
you
Dude.
know. And even before I knew it was going to save my life, like prayer was already playing a big role in my life, but I was still kind of rascaling around in my life and sort of only kind of half in it. And then, um, you know, when I was down on my knees and I needed help, really when Megan was sick and in the hospital was when I was like, oh, I knew exactly what to do. It
Yeah.
was like, pray
Yeah.
and get everybody I could find to pray with me, to
Yes.
create this prayer for her life and the miracle that we wanted to see. And from that point on, I was just like, okay, I like prayer. I get it, God. Like you have given me the direct, the direct line, so to speak, to God's ear.
Totally.
So that's what prayer is. And I think the only thing I would want to add is that part of like being part of this discussion with you, I feel moved to make prayer more available to people, to sort of remove prayer like from the grasps of religion.
Yes.
Because my orientation
Thank
to
you.
prayer was I grew up in a Jewish family, and so I went to temple every weekend and had a bar mitzvah, and so prayer was really through the Jewish tradition. It took me many years to really see like, oh, every religion seems to have their prayer and every tradition all around the world, and so
Yeah.
I definitely feel a little bit on a mission to sort of free prayer up from the grasp
Yes.
of anybody who thinks they own it.
Yeah. Yeah, and like part of our job, it feels like, is destigmatizing the word,
Mm.
is like what you're saying, helping pull it out of the grasps of systems of domination and control. That prayer is not only the reading of the writings of the sages and repeating the mantra. That's a really important part of what I understand prayer to be, but it's not where I come most alive in prayer. Where I come most alive is when I'm in the flow and I am speaking from my heart, not from a book. The books often are inspiration and guidance. They teach me about the structure of prayer and the recipes of prayer. But once we internalize those structures, once we activate our spiritual vocabulary, then to riff, then to like really speak to that meeting point of where our individual life is meeting this like cosmic unfoldment. Like that's this like really rich place to pray into. And I think I really learned this from George Bertelstein about the praying being as specific as possible about what we're asking for help around without the illusion that we know how it's supposed to turn out. So we're asking for support, we're asking for our bubble, our idea bubble to be popped so that the cosmos, so that earth, so that God can conspire to deliver the answer of our prayers in exactly the way that our soul needs for its greatest evolutionary expression. And the other thing I want to add about prayer from one of my other teachers, actually from Mark, who you know, he talks a lot about how we in the West have been socialized to identify I as self, I as this little bubble. And we talk about, I as a wave in the sea, even in Western theology, we talk about being a spark of the divine. But in so many ways, to me, that has felt limiting, because I have discovered through these prayer practices that I am also the walking prayer of my ancestors. I am also the embodiment of the tree. I am breathing the breath of the tree. The tree's essence is in my body. I am an animated cell of this earth. And so prayer for me is like access into the fuller, truer identification of self. That I am a thread in this network of life that is not just the locale of our planet, but is part of this cosmic dream. And prayer is the most effective way and I want to talk to you about this, is meditation prayer? Is practicing Qigong prayer? Through these technologies, I am remembering myself, to quote my teacher Don Oscar. We are remembering ourselves as part of something so much bigger in prayer.
Yeah, and I love what you were saying about meditation and Qigong and all the sacred practices. I always think of them as putting us in the vibrational field to make a prayer, but it's not the same as making a prayer.
Right. There's this distinction between doing and being. I was just talking to one of my mentors.
It's in my notes. We were going to talk about just this, so please
doing and being?
Yeah.
Great. Should I wait?
No, go.
Okay.
This is it.
So doing and being feels like a really important topic to unpack around the topic of prayer, because I've been on this meditation kick the past couple weeks, and it has been so nourishing, sort of like melting out of doing, just being in awareness, just being in my body. It's been so nourishing. And what I realized, I came to this point where I finished a meditation and I was like, well, I'm done meditating, but I'm not done praying. And so I took my tools outside and I made this big offering on my earth shrine. And I'm discovering more and more that this spectrum of doing and being is really a spectrum. That when we're washing the dishes, it can feel a lot like doing. But as we develop our capacity to reside more in beingness, our doing becomes infused with being. And this is really where I feel like prayer is the great teacher. Because when we're really in our prayers, oftentimes we're doing a ritual. Oftentimes I'm doing a ritual. And the more beingness I feel in that ritual, the more impact, the more spiritual impact that doing has, and the more nourished I feel in the performing of, not to use that word as a criticism, like performance can be really toxic, but also to perform a ritual with love and depth of being is an act of lovemaking with spirit. And that's this other thread that I'm really tracking these days, is so much pleasure is available in the lovemaking with spirit through ritual, through ceremony.
Yeah, I love that, the way you describe it. And for me, it's I like to think about I know what my prayer feels like, and I can track that in the other things. So if I have been praying and doing rituals and in that communication, and then I go inside and I have to help my children with something, there's a certain love and vibration I'm able to carry, because I remember my prayer, which is always love. The prayer is always more love for me.
Yes.
And so if I just meditate, sometimes if I meditate and then I go inside, I'm peaceful and I can access that. But there is something different for me vibrationally around prayer and the way it makes me feel, that I can then remember that feeling. I know when I'm not in my prayer, it usually feels pretty tight and pressure is rising, and I'm, it's but even doing this conversation with you feels like an extension of my prayer. So it's like, let's do this. Let's offer this up.
Yes. And that's reminding me of some other teachings about the Red Road,
Mm,
which is complicated, but it's a spiritual path of full, what I have integrated, what I have internalized from the teachers that I've heard speak about this, is it's the full integration and release into the humanness.
mm,
Right? We're not trying to transcend, actually. We're trying to embody, where we are committed to fully plugging in to the human beingness. And that's what I hear you talking about, is that prayer can be, in the way that we've found, a way to support us in living our lives more from our essence, more from our true nature, rather than the socialized human that gets caught in the mind.
mm. Yeah, you know, what's coming alive for me now too is some of the like the trauma of prayer
Yeah.
in society and in our culture and in the world, where prayer was used, sort of weaponized to like
Yes.
to shame people. And like if you did something that you did something wrong, it was like go pray for forget like
Yes.
I don't know why that's coming through for me right now, but I think it's partly because I don't orient to prayer in that way. Like
Yes.
prayer for me is always a very loving experience. It's always, like it was when you were talking about being the human being. Like
Yeah.
when I access that information in my body, I know I am not perfect. I know I am going to have follies and make mistakes and trip on myself. Um, but in praying, not to forgive me for all my sins, but to just help me be a better human being, to help me keep
Yes.
finding my forward.
Yes.
Feels like the healing around prayer for me that I really wish for people. You know, I want people to feel like prayer is not just a place to go and heal, or you know, to forgive our shame or sins, but a place to really feel whole and to be able to ask for more of what we want. You know, sometimes like
Yeah.
for me, law of attraction and prayer have a similar vibration.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Totally.
and there is this essence of I am whole and there's more that I want.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask God, my parent, the creator, for it all.
Yes. And then there's the other end of the spectrum around the stigmatization of prayer being from where I came from, where I grew up, there was this unspoken transmission that prayer is for weak people.
Mm,
Prayer is for people who want to anesthetize themselves. Prayer is for people who want to escape.
mm,
They don't want to be in reality. And that has been a big healing journey for me. I remember about 7, 8 years ago, when I remembered how much I love to pray. And it was revolutionary for me. It was revolutionary that I was allowed to love to pray, and that it was true for me that I loved to pray. And there has been a big healing journey in there, and I still face this sometimes as I'm coming out more and more and surrendering into this life path. Facing those old voices that come up and be like, you're I don't even believe them anymore, but they still come up and attempt to shame me into silence, shame me into you're just making this up, you're a charlatan, right? And when I'm feeling down about myself, when I'm feeling down about the world, those voices can have impact on my heart, and it's really painful. And then when I get back in my prayer, when I get back in my body, when I get back grounded and connected to the earth, there's no question about the validity, the efficacy, the pleasure, the power of walking as a praying human, walking as a praying person. It is the way it is my primary language, how I understand my life at this point, is that I am here as a vessel for remedy to live through me. And the more I can surrender to the pleasure of that journey and also the rigor of that journey, I don't want to make it sound like it's all rainbows and unicorns, though there are a lot of those, but that there is this rigor and you know this as a married man, as a man who is a father of two, relationship is not easy. I was just reading this beautiful excerpt from this book about the Baal Shem Tov, who's one of our Judaism's sort of magic, mythological and historical figures. He talks about the unification prayer. And the unification prayer is about the harmonization of two seemingly incompatible realities. We have so many of that. There's so much paradox that we're navigating in this world right now with the epidemic, with the pandemic, with the awakening to social justice, hugely in this country and around the world, with the environmental catastrophe that we're navigating. There are so many seemingly um, dead ends, dead ends that we're facing as humanity. And the great relief, capital R, that I keep discovering is that I don't have to figure it out. And the reality is that I can't figure it out. None of us can figure this thing out. What we can do is open ourselves to the incredibly diverse network of wisdom that we are swimming in, that we are walking in, that we are a part of, and allow that wisdom to truly weave miracles into this reality. And I see that over and over again, this miraculous nature of reality being able to change shape and mold itself to deliver us to what we are attuning to. And if we are, through as praying men, attuning ourselves to remedy, true remedy in a society that is so ill in its understanding of what life is, that is like the most exquisite act of surrender that I can imagine. And requires such devotion and rigor in our commitment to being real with ourselves and real with what we see around us. Rather than burying our heads in the sand and praying for forgiveness, please forgive me for... No. Please use me. Use my life every day so that I can bring one more drop of remedy to this ocean of suffering.
It's beautiful. Last night I was praying and singing, and the song came through that was just really about like everything that I have has been given to me by Creator, by the Spirit of all life.
Yeah.
And so in the song came through this, what you're saying, right, which is like, help me to do with what you gave me what you want me to do.
Yes.
So that I can kind of blossom in sort of in the field of all of it. It's like the feeling of the miracle of our lives that you were kind of speaking to. Like, can we just show up for our lives and be like, one of the things I like to do, even when I pray, is just like, this is my life. Like, I like to take my hands and bring them right up next to me so that I can really presence everything that's here. And I'm not hiding. There's no head in the sand. It's like, no, this is really my life. And some of it's really hard in this moment or that moment. And all of it's welcome. But none of it is a problem per se. And none of it is my fault, really. But I can show up to my life and show up to the context of our world and start to, to learn and humble myself, really, right? Like, especially as a white man in this world right now, especially with Black Lives Matter and all the different things going on. It's like, wow, I have so much to learn.
Yes.
Can I humble myself to know that and to try to, to pray to do that, to pray to deprogram myself to and not only just pray, but then to actually do the thing. Yes. And that's sort of when you were talking about the spectrum of doing and being was alive for me, which is like, I don't think either one of us is talking about just praying and then hanging out in a closet and hoping things are going to happen. Yeah. We didn't arrive here in this moment. The two of us we prayed and then we received what we received and then we got to work.
Beautiful.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So prayer. And I just also want to ground in our discussion, when did you start praying with other people? When did you get to the point where you were like, wait, not only am I a prayerful man, but my work is to pray with people and to help people. Because I know that's so central to the work you do with your clients and community, and whether it's in your men's groups or one-on-one, is helping people to land their prayer and to get more comfortable with prayer.
That's a really good question. When did that start? I grew up in a household of type A, East Coast Jewish doers, really, really skillful teachers. I grew up in a home of devoted teachers. Teaching was sort of the religion of my home. And from a very young age, my mom said to me, she said, Alex, you better be careful where you lead people because you could lead them off a cliff. So she was she saw this capacity in me very young to be this leader. And once I popped out of my opera singing identity in California and started to pray and sort of discover this passion of mine, very quickly I started hosting these full moon gatherings with Madhu, actually. And they were so fun. We'd have like 6 people come over to my home, and we'd have a little ceremony and ritual, and it was so delicious. And then once I left my IT job, which is what was supporting me, and I sort of put all of my eggs in one basket, the basket of prayer, very quickly I started working one-on-one with people, and I discovered that my work with them was about helping them clarify their prayer for their lives and how to tend that prayer. That was really where I feel like my niche is, if I can say that, is like, so, okay, we've got your prayer, now what? Now what do you do on a daily basis? How do you court spirits to you to support you? How do you activate spiritual architecture? I love that phrase. How do we study spiritual vocabulary and ceremonial language so that we're entering a different state of consciousness? And actually this brings up the decolonization process, is that like as we're studying how to pray, because this is also a really important distinction. We're not born knowing how to pray. I think we are in prayer state until about 7 or 8 when the brain waves shift. But once we transition and we find ourselves in this paradigm of North America or wherever we are, we have to study the craft, the art of prayer, just like singing, right? Like everybody knows how to sing when they're a kid, but then to refine the craft of singing, to really discover the technique of it, the pedagogy. How do I orient to all of this musculature? How do I sing a high note with an open throat? Like these are skills that we get to study as adults. And I really quickly discovered, all of my trainings, all of these incredible teachers, all of these ceremonies that I have gotten to sit in have initiated me into the craft of prayer. And the craft of prayer is how we tend a prayer, right? So I just did a post yesterday where I said some of my allies showed up in dream time and they knocked this egg out of my hand in dream time and it disappeared into the earth. And so when I woke up, I went to my tool set and I was like, hey y'all, do you want me to make an offering of an egg to the earth? And they're, I toss my shells, I use all of my divination tools, and they're like, yes, and then all of these other pieces come through the tool set. So there's this way that the tool set supports me to tend the prayer for my life. And this is where I experience a lot of juice, is sharing appropriately the tools that I have received to help people awaken their to activate the momentum of their prayer lives. And one other thing I want to name about that is around appropriation, because there's a real tendency to see a shiny spiritual tool and buy it and take it and go home and use it. And in one way, that's the way that we are today. Like that is how we have been socialized, especially as white folk. Part of my path is walking between worlds and supporting people in reclaiming their ancestral spiritual technology. I've heard from many elders at this point in my life who say no culture, no people owns any spiritual technology. The Lakota people do not own the Chinupa. The Jewish people do not own the Torah. Now that's controversial and that's for another conversation, but that really resonates with me. The technology is culturally specific. It carries with it medicine for that culture and the time that it was delivered. And as we heal up this wound collectively around the spiritual genocide, the ancestral genocide that we have committed unconsciously, we have to, I believe, turn to living lineages to remember what it feels like to be in living prayer, not necessarily that concretized prayer, but the living prayer that is in constant evolution and is connected deeply to nature and is rooted deeply in the earth, not how do we get out of body and transcend and get out of here. That's not the path I walk, and that's not the path that I teach. I teach the path of deeply anchoring into the earth, deeply connecting with the spirits of the land, the spirits of nature, with our ancestors, with our ancestral spiritual technology, which is different for everybody, and which is why I say when I get to work with somebody, I'm helping them discover their pantheon. I'm helping them discover their spiritual entourage, not so that they can imitate what I have discovered, but so that they can awaken fully to all of the medicine and magic that they were born to integrate.
Yeah,
With so many threads.
It's so beautiful. And I think, the appropriation topic, I think it's very relevant for you and I to talk about, especially as white men and what white people have done historically around this world. But I also think that, to your point, like I know that there are, tribes in the Amazon who are saying, get medicine to the white people so that they can heal and stop some of these atrocities, and so I know that the reasons that we have access to this is what you said earlier, which is it's an answered prayer, right?
Yeah.
Of people long ago, that these tools would get to other people other than just themselves.
Yes.
Right. Like for the unification prayer to really happen, there needs to be bridges amongst cultures. So then the question becomes, what is good way? Right. And that's sort of what I try to keep reminding, like, what is good way if I'm, benefiting or practicing another traditions? How do I give thanks? How do I even sometimes with my finances, how do I donate into those tribes or those,
how
those
do we
peoples?
engage in healthy reciprocity?
Right.
That's
beautiful.
This is a primary spiritual principle. Aini in Quechua is one of the primary principles that I was taught by my teacher Don Oscar, and I love you bringing this up. How do we be in reciprocity with the cultures that have carried and sacrificed lives, have spilled blood, so that we, in this moment, could catch the gift of these spiritual transmissions and awaken to our true nature? This is so important. This is such an important conversation and such an important exploration for all of us to be in.
And I think it also, like, it makes me want to take a little time to talk about divination with you, since you brought it up. And it's really still very new to me. I'm totally in awe of the whole divination, connecting with spirits in this way. And so I would love for you to talk about it. But I wanted to also just say, like, if we're orienting to spirit and we're getting information from spirit, then that will have to be part of our navigation system as to what is for us and what is not.
Yes.
Versus it's not all going to be just what humans tell me. Because if it was just what humans told me, 99% of what I do in practice right now would be outside of what most people I know would say is for them. But this is for me. And so I ground in that, and I listen to spirit, and I listen to the guidance that I'm receiving to know what to work with. So that's sort of what I was hearing when you were talking about it. But so I do want to go to divination, which is one of the,
before we go on, I want to make sure I understood what you were just saying. So you were saying about the humans, the 99% of what humans say. Can you unpack that a little more?
Yeah, well, our culture is a certain way. And I find increasingly that I am not so much that way. And I think a lot of the systematic ills of our culture, there's a stepping out of the system a little bit. And I am definitely out of it. And I'm in the system, and I am a product of it, and all my blessings and my privilege, 100% from the system.
Yeah.
But in terms of how I orient my life, how I am with my children and my wife, how I am with the sacred,
with your clients,
with my clients,
yep,
I am trying to orient to a new world that's coming.
Yes.
And so that requires me to sort of recognize the culture and system I come out of, also recognize the privilege and the benefits, and then how do I utilize those? How do I take the privilege and move into the new world
and feed and tend that prayer?
Yeah. And
how do you tend that prayer with the privilege?
And like you said, when you talk about the red road, one of my favorite parts of the red road is this vision of never ending hands reaching back and forward. So there's someone behind me who needs some help, and I can grab their hand and pull them up. Simultaneously, I need help, and I can put my hand out and someone's pulling me forward. And in that way, we can all make this miraculous.
You're illuminating the decolonization mind. right? Because what does the colonized mind tell us? What does white male America tell us? Do it on your own. You can figure it out. You need to be the top dog. All of this, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, right? That like
All my
energy,
favorite movies.
right? I know. We all
Rambo.
grew up on that garbage, and I love Arnold. Bless your life. And it's this is part of my understanding of being in reciprocity, is allowing the paradigm of indigenous consciousness, which is where these medicine tools have been gifted to us from. Allowing indigenous consciousness to melt away our ideas of separate self. Because this is where so much of our suffering as a collective comes from, is that we've been hoodwinked. Is that an appropriate word? We've been hoodwinked to believe that we have to figure it out on our own. My God, is that a painful lie that has been put into our blood from a very young age, most of us, right? And what you're talking about is like the hands reaching in both directions. It's not just the humans offering their hands and needing hands. Our ancestors are starving to be included actively in our prayer lives. This is their, in the Dagara, talking about divination, this indigenous consciousness from the Dagara people of Burkina Faso, this is the tribe that I am a lineage carrier in, they know that the ancestors are walking with us every day and every step. And so they're in constant tending and listening to and receiving support from their ancestors. Lots of physical offerings, lots of matter, lots of milk and water and honey and ash and hibiscus tea. Because they understand, because they have not been stripped of the knowing that spirit interfaces with matter. Our ancestors, my teacher said, our ancestors lust for matter, lust for offerings, in the same way that we lust for spiritual awakening. It's a mutual reaching, this hand imagery that you just brought in. And so it's not just learning how to receive and give support with an open heart to our fellow humans. It's not just about loving and taking care of the land that we live on. It's about, on my path, and I'm not telling anybody else what to do, but my path is about teaching people, supporting people in opening to the incredible diversity of support that's offered through the veil between the worlds. And when that discovery takes root in our visceral experience of life, somehow it is remedy around the broken ideas that we're socialized into living. And that's part of the reciprocity. That's part of us giving back to these lineages, is allowing ourselves to be utterly changed, allowing our old ways of living to melt away. And so that we, as you said, unplug from the systems of domination and control that need us to believe these lies in order to function.
Yeah. So let's do that. Let's do that.
Let's do that one.
Yeah, and it's like it's one and the same, because I always laugh at myself too, because like I love all the the comforts of the culture. I haven't yet moved into the forest, although I probably would if my daughters were interested. They're not. They really like this culture. They like they like being in the community. They just like it. It's for them, and so I'm in the dance of honoring that and being patient. Like I think that's one of the big practices that has come to my life, especially through more divination and more contact with spirit, is like, I can have all my desires. I can have all these wants for my life. And I could also be patient,
Yes.
George once said about prayer, George Bertelstein, who you mentioned earlier, he said like, there's 3 answers to a prayer: yes, no, and maybe,
And not yet. I think I heard
not yet. Maybe he said not yet. but that I sort of live with that, where it's like, okay, God knows what I want. If God wants me to have that, then that's going to show up into my life. It's going to be the miracle. And the things that I move towards tend to move towards me too, you know? So it's.
And it reminds me of this phrase that I learned from my friend Joe, transitional ethics, right? As we're transitioning out of a fossil fuel based system, we're still driving our cars. I'm still purchasing things that are wrapped in plastic, you know? So there's the transitional phase that my radical extremist that lives inside me looks at as like, oh, well, you're not living your prayer. And there's truth in that. Like, we are learning, we are in constant evolution in walking our prayers towards the full manifestation of that beautiful world that we know, more beautiful world that we know is possible, to quote Charles Eisenstein. And on the way there, it's not all, to quote myself from earlier, unicorns and rainbows, you know?
Yeah, life can be hard.
Yeah.
Like and that's sort of one of the other beautiful teachings, right? It's like, life will be hard.
Yeah.
We don't need to make it harder on ourselves.
Right.
Like, when it's hard, and when it's not, I try to not have it be hard. That's one of my practices, you know, like, and sometimes I have my own, it's probably trauma and anxiety that, like, oh, something hard is around the corner, because it's true.
Yeah.
It's just fundamentally true. Like, all of us who are alive, we are going to experience so much heartache in our lives.
Yes.
Even if everything went exactly as we planned, no one's getting out of here alive. So that means anybody that I love.
Yeah, we're all dead.
I was talking to my older brother the other day, and we were talking about how much we love each other, and I was talking about love and pain or something. And I go, oh yeah, whichever one of us leaves here first is going to break the other's heart into a million pieces.
Yeah.
And we just paused, and in that pausing though, we were able to just recognize how precious it is that we get to talk for a moment and to hear each other's voice and to presence that level of blessing and connection.
Beautiful.
Which is, in some ways, to bring it back to divination, is helping me, because the more I connect with spirit, the more I'm like, oh wow, like, I can see you right now. How special is that? Like, I can't see in the same way spirits that come to me, maybe in dreams, but like, I could touch you if you were near me. Like, it's that special. It's that remarkable, because it's not forever.
Yeah.
Or my kids. Every time I get to hug my kids, I'm just like, oh my God, this is so incredible. And this is only for a time.
Yeah. So
can I be present for it? Can I really let that, what I often refer to as a sip of nectar, you know, can I just hummingbird around, sipping all the nectar available to me?
That's beautiful.
And I feel like that's what the spirits, like when we do, like, my few times with divination feels like that. It's like a sip of nectar. It's like, the diviner who I'm sitting with is like a hummingbird feeder, and we're all just like, me and the spirits, you know, we're just like, give it to me.
Oh, that's a great image.
I don't know if you want to go a little further into divination. I feel it's important just because it's something that you offer and something that a lot of people don't know about, frankly. Like, I didn't know about it. It's still, and maybe it's good reason that it's, you know, not overly communicated out in the world, but for those who are still watching now, for people who will watch, I think it'd be nice to give them just a little bit. If you could, I mean, how do you describe it to people? You've probably had to tell your mom at some point or somebody, you know?
Beautiful. Divination. I'm remembering the first divination I received. Madhu gifted me for my birthday a divination with Mark, my teacher, and we drove up to Nicasio and sat in his little shrine room, and we walked in, and there's like ash everywhere and little tchotchkes everywhere and like bowls of shells and horse tails hanging off the wall, and you know, it's just like beautiful messy chaos. And as soon as I walked in, my nervous system was like, cool. And I sat down on this little stool, this little wooden stool on the ground, and he sat in front of me, and there was all of these gifted me for my birthday medicine pieces. Mark, my teeth.
I just went on Facebook to see the comments on your page, and then it echoed, and I got out. I was like, we cannot do that. Continue.
Yeah, and at some point, let's check in and see if there are any questions or suggestions for what people would like to
hear. Let's do that at a time spot. I was trying to be smooth.
Nice work. And I sat down, and there were all of these like little tchotchkes, like a pile of tchotchkes, little a folded up dollar bill and a stick and a shell and a rock and a pin and all of these little pieces. And he's holding this stick, and there's a big flat piece of wood, and he's tapping on it, and he's touching me with the stick, and I'm holding the stick, and this stick is going to the pieces and pointing at things, and he's picking things up, and he's talking to them, and he's whispering to them, and then he tosses shells, and then he comes out and he says, okay, so the spirits tell me that you're going to do this. And I looked at him, and I was like, hell no, I'm not doing this. Like, I already carry a mesa. I carry a Pachacuti mesa from the Andes. And I already have so many spirits that I have to tend. Like, I'm not interested. And he's like, okay, well, I'm just telling you what they said. And he proceeded to give me a divination, and he is channeling, in essence, words from my grandmothers. Your grandmothers are saying they want to help you with this thing. And I'm like, how the fuck did he know about that? And then he gives me a prescription. You need to offer milk and water onto the earth while you tap in this way. You need to make a little mound of earth in this way. And this is the recipe. This is the ritual you need to do to address this imbalance in your life. And I was like, cool. I love spiritual homework. So I took this like 5 or 6 assignments. I went home. I did these rituals. And I was flabbergasted by the impact that these rituals seemingly I was pouring water on the earth and a little bit of ash. How in God's name does that change anything? Was where I was at that time. And so I went back to him a couple more times, and it was like 6 months later. I'd seen him like 2 or 3 times, and I was like, okay, Mark, I'm ready. I'm ready for the initiation. Let's do this thing. It's proven itself effective. It feels so good. I love this medicine way. Let's start. And he's like, what are you talking about? What do you think you've been coming here for? This is not a weekend workshop initiation. This is how you get initiated in Dagara land. This is how you get initiated in Burkina Faso. You go see the diviner until the spirits say you're ready to do this. And flash forward 2-3 years, many divinations, lots of rituals, other initiatory experiences. And I got initiated, I think it was 4 years ago, to offer divination. So now, when I'm sitting in the chair of the diviner and somebody comes to me and they sit in front of me, or on Zoom, I've been doing a lot on Zoom lately, which is really exciting that the spirits are a thumbs up for it.
They don't seem to mind.
I am entering quasi-trance state through sort of like a recipe that I do before I give the divination. So I enter this state where I'm listening, I'm witnessing the stick move and listening to voices and images and somatic experiences that are communicating to me what I need to tell the client. So I'm allowing myself to be used as a vessel to deliver remedy to the client. And that can look like their ancestors. Oftentimes it looks like their ancestors coming and whispering in my ears or showing me a sort of like a movie. Oftentimes I get. Or earth spirits, earth elemental spirits, or there's so many categories of beings. This is what I love about this work, is like they haven't collapsed spirit into singularity. They recognize the multiplicity and diversity of spiritual forces that we get to have connection with, without disappearing the reality that underneath it all is source. They're not this indigenous community, the Dagara, and they're not confused about that, and they're also not rushing to singularity. They're relishing and enjoying and diving into the multiplicity and the beautiful complexity of the spiritual dimension and physical dimension that we're interfacing with. So as a diviner, I get to be the phone operator. Hey, I got Aaron Schiller here with me. What are the ancestors that want to come speak here today? Oh, Grandma. Okay, what do you want to tell him? Is that okay? He needs to know this, and this. Great, I'll tell him. Is there anything you need for him to receive those blessings? Oh, okay, you want a glass of milk on the earth? You need a necklace. You need him to bury a necklace. Okay, a necklace. You need him to bury it. So it's like they're giving me the recipes. And the other thing that I love about the divination technology is that it's not just dependent on my intuitive capacity. The system, the divination technology system, has built into it checks and balances. So before I give the prescription or tell the client what I've received, I check it out with my tools, and oftentimes they're like, "Oh, you almost got it. Let's refine it a little bit." And then they'll show me what the refinement is. So I get to deliver something that is through me, but not dependent solely upon me. The tool set supports. It is that spiritual architecture that allows the delivery of the medicine to be beautifully specific and checked by the tools.
I love it. That was so well said. I'm so glad that we have that on recording, because I couldn't have described it the way. And I love the matter of fact way. And some of what you're saying is like exactly how a divination goes, at least with the different people I've done them with. Like that's how it goes.
Yeah.
And I also love about divination, for people who are interested in listening, for me, the cathartic part is always like, I don't have to prepare anything. I don't have to medicine. I don't have to like.
You don't have to do shit. You get to just sit there.
I just get to show up and be open.
Yeah.
And be wowed really with what information I'm getting that is clearly, especially I've done a couple sessions out with Mark, your teacher, and like, he doesn't know me. He doesn't know the background. And what is the spirits do though.
Yes.
And that's where it's so touching, because it's just like, thank you. Thank you for helping to slow it down for me, because some of my access to spirit comes from, and people who are familiar with like medicine ceremonies, plant medicine, like I've also had spirit connection in dreams, but there's something about the divination where it just slows it down enough.
Yes.
It become matter of fact for me to be like, okay, I will go. And I love what you described, like spiritual homework. Yeah. It's so helpful. Like these offerings blow my mind. Like the things that I'm asked to do. For me, it's funny because I got asked to offer some wine and some spirits. Yeah. And I don't drink alcohol anymore, but I laughed. On Saturday, it'll be 6 years since I had my last drink. But I went to the store to go buy alcohol for spirits now. And I just thought that was such a funny, like, just, like I didn't see that coming, like totally. Now I'm buying alcohol for the non-embodied, that's great. Yes. That's much safer, it seems like, for everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I hope more people will do divination. I feel like, obviously even this discussion is a sign that we're being asked to talk about this and normalize that this level of support is available to the human being who find it. So if someone
and to name that, that part of how I'm engaging in reciprocity is every Friday for the time being, I'm offering divinations solely on donation. So if you're a person that is like called to this work and really hungry for it, and you've lost your job, like, get over here. Come, let's pray. Like, let's do this thing. Let's do the divination. And like, it is my obligation / opportunity to serve the people who ask. So if you want a divination, we're going to make it work. And you can give as little as you need or as much as is in your heart. And I have that link somewhere. I need to make it more available, but I want people to sign up for divinations and give what they can.
Well, maybe you could put the link in the comments when you go to Facebook after, or so anybody who's watching the link, you could put it there, and
I'll do that.
That would be easy. But yeah, I'm really touched right now, just like sort of basking in this conversation around divination that I would not have seen coming for my life a year ago. So it just feels there's something special about having a very normal conversation about this, while it may be out there, it's really in here still, so it's not that out there. No. At least us two guys.
And I just want to reiterate that, like, all of the rituals, all of the ceremony, all of the spiritual architecture that we're activating is for the purpose of housing the awakening of the essence, awakening of the true self, of the relaxing into the pleasure of being alive, so that we have the resource to show up for the global transformation that we are in. I was just listening to Michael Meade yesterday on his podcast about initiation, and some of my other mentors have been talking about this to me, is that we are in a radical initiation globally right now. All of the structures that we have identified as our life, oh, that's my life, they're melting. They're melting. There's no going back to normal, especially here in California. We're feeling it, and in some of these other states that are having to go back to more stringent lockdown. The initiation phase begins with the descent, the dissolution of how we knew ourselves to be. And the purpose of initiation is so that we can be freed into that which we are becoming, which we don't know. And so when I invite people to work with me, it is for the purpose of helping us stabilize through this initiation phase so that we can come out the other end with the benefit of having survived an initiation rather than squandering it, which is a real possibility for us individually and collectively.
Yeah, especially like I'm touched by that, and the idea that oftentimes when hard things happen to us in our culture, we have a mindset of like, well, you just get over it.
Yes.
You move forward and you don't. And I think that was something that I've not been able to do really. It's like, you know, I feel like I went through an initiation a year and a half ago or 2 years, whatever. Yeah, year and a half now.
Yeah.
And it forever changed me because I oriented to it that way. I didn't just try to like pretend that, you know, it didn't happen or move. I was like, oh, this happened for me in my up leveling. This happened for me, and my reorienting to my true self, my true north, you know, the sense I've always had of myself.
Yes. And it's reminding me of this passage from The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. Gibran, I don't know how to say it correctly, of the carving tool of pain carves out the cup that then gets to be filled by joy. And that the greatest liberation that I had, the gift, the greatest gem that I have been given on this healing path, this path of prayer, has been the discovery and the visceral knowing at this point, many, many years of pain, that as the pain arrives, it's the sacred guest. It's the sacred guest that is here to carve off another layer of the armoring that we put on in order to survive in this world, that we don't need anymore, that we don't need, all in right timing. You know, it's not about ripping the armor off and bleeding your way through life. No, it's about what's that next layer of calloused skin that we can carve off so that your heart can be touched more by life, so that you can be more effective in living your purpose, so that you can weave your genius that can only be born through your life into this world from the other worlds. Each one of us has that opportunity, and it feels so good to know that at this point, and to have my life oriented around serving people to blossom their genius into this world. And I cannot fucking believe still that I get to do this as an occupation. It's so beyond what I have created or what I'm capable of creating. It is the weaving of so many spiritual forces that are using my life and all of my gifts to get to serve people. And you have been such an ally for me on that path, Aaron, these past several months, working with you, helping build the website and helping clarify my message. Like, from our first meeting, you were like radiating your beautiful Care Bear grandmother love at me, and unwilling to stop loving me into my fullness, into the fullness of my offering in this world. I love you so much, brother.
I love you, brother. It's such an honor. This whole experience, this discussion, the journey we've been on, from the first moment, right? To know that we could do business things, but to do it with prayer at the center.
Yes.
And to always return to that, even when things got hard. It's like, oh well, where's the prayer for us, and how do we just keep moving forward till all of a sudden, wow, here we are doing a Facebook Live together, talking about what we love most, and there's a certain ease that I'm touched by.
Me too.
Right.
Me too.
What you just said a moment ago was so beautiful that I was like, oh, this is it. This is the climax and the the biggest offering of what you just shared a moment ago. So I feel very complete.
Feel
And
complete after the climax?
yeah, I just immediately want to like nap now. Just complete, because you just where you caught fire, and I hope people are like, I want to give you that reflection too of your ability to catch fire and let a message move through you. And I just pray that you will do more of these kind of discussions, and to share more of it, because it's so, I mean, I'm still feeling what you just said a moment ago. And then thank you for your compliments. And I don't know if you want to look on your Facebook page. I got scared off. I went on there.
Yeah, it
There were some
blew you out
comments.
of the water.
It blew me out of the water, but maybe if we're like doing it intentionally.
Yeah, I don't know that there are many questions. I'm
Okay,
not
people just
seeing
spreading the
anything.
love. Great. And obviously, this is the first time we're doing this, both of us. So we're going to learn how to use this. I just have to say, selfishly, this has been a lot of fun for me. I
Yeah,
like
me
this
too.
one. Really easy. Like it's just up and out there now. Did you want to sing a song to finish us off, or
Yeah,
how you feel about that?
I feel great about that.
All right.
There's this song that I was thinking about that's inspired by Shefa Gold. Shefa Gold is this amazing witchy rabbi. She's just incredible. And she put this text that it's actually Moses speaking to Pharaoh. Pharaoh says to him, why do you need to take everybody with you? And Moses answers, Lo neda mana avod et ya ad boenu shama, which is we don't know how we will serve God until we get there.
Mm.
Which is this beautiful, for me at this point, this beautiful metaphor
Mm.
for we're not. This is the unification prayer. Nobody is expendable. No part of us is expendable. This is about taking everybody with us.
Mm.
Lo neda manavod et ya ad boenu shama. 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 Et ya ad boenu shama. Et ya ad boenu lo neda manavod et ya ad boenu shama. 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 Et ya ad boenu shama. Et ya ad boenu shama. What a pleasure being with you, Aaron.
Mhm.
Thank you, bro.
Mhm. Thanks for singing, brother. I love your singing heart. Keep singing.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
All right.
So how'd we do? We do all right?
I think we did okay. Let's
Yeah.
analyze it now in front of everybody.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I would just do what we would do when we hang up. No, we could get out of here first.
Yeah. Thank you everybody for being here with us, and for all of those of you who are joining us in a future present now. Thank you for listening, and I would love to work with you. And if you're looking for incredible prayerful support in branding and launching your business, please reach out to Aaron Schiller at Launch Medicine. His medicine is so sweet and so powerful. And I want to say thank you to all of the spirits that we called in here, all of the ancestors and the elementals and the water spirits and the earth spirit and the mountain spirit and the Wedeme and the Contomble and all of the ancestors. Thank you all so much for your support. Thank you for guiding us in our time together. And I will greet you again very shortly. But for now, please go rest, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon. Love you. Amen.
Amen.